I started working with gang intervention program. Two ways for women to get into a gang is be beat up or being raped. Gel tattoos, are made with urine and ashes.
If you've been skiing for 2 months, you are squatting and using your hips. On my table today, Florence Azria. She's one of the most inspiring person I know. She is a philanthropist. She is a French who was part of the first wave that came from France to LA to kind of develop the fashion industry. You might know her from Miss Delightful Azria on YouTube. I'm so honored to have you on my table. We're going to talk about her story. We're going to talk about how she came to LA, and I really want to know about her latest project in Tijuana. I want to know all about it because she spent a lot of time caring for others and trying to make their life a better life. How do you feel in your body? Is there anything that's tight, uncomfortable, bothering you?
So I went to ski for 2 months. So my hip are really tight, my legs are tight, and also start working out last Sunday. So I'm sore, like there is no tomorrow. Everything, like my arms, I'm a bit better today, but I did Pilates and lift weight and so everything is sore. But it's mostly my hips.
Mostly your hips?
Yeah, and the
Gotcha.
lower back always.
Lower back, okay,
Yeah.
which is linked to your hip. Like
Yes.
usually when you have tight hips, then it's gonna have some pressure on your
lower back. Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna do a lot of work on this. So your right side.
Yeah,
is the
I mean both sides, but I feel like the tension in the lower back when I sleep.
Okay.
you know?
And that also makes sense because if you've been skiing for 2 months, you are squatting and using your hips. So I'm not a skier,
Right.
but like I know that
Yeah.
that movement.
Yes.
And so that's definitely gonna make your hip flexors
Right.
work way
Much.
more.
Yes,
Okay.
much tighter.
So
yeah.
we're gonna work on that.
Yes, perfect.
Let's
yeah.
go.
I mean, when you told me come, I'm like, oh my God, the wrist massage. It has been such a long time.
Even though you know me, sometimes it hurts.
Yeah, but the wrist massage, it's another level. I think I'm gonna enroll in basketball just for that. Oh, and also, I had foot surgery a month ago because I had arthritis.
Okay.
So what they did, so they cleaned, the bone, but they didn't do an implant. So they cleaned it. But, I still have pain, which, I mean, now it's better, but I still do have pain. So
And you have some scar tissue, like it's
Yeah.
not moving really well. So we're gonna work on that to
Yeah.
give it more
scar tissue, I
movement.
mean, it's so painful. It's ridiculous, right?
You need a little bit more soft tissue work.
Yes, work. Yeah.
Start with that first.
That's why you should move back.
Yeah. Talk to my husband.
Yes, totally. Oh, yeah, he doesn't like LA, huh?
That's not really like LA.
He doesn't, yeah. I mean, LA, it's interesting because it's a city, either it takes you in and you love it, or it spit you out and you hate it.
Yeah,
There is no in between,
it's true.
The people that live here, most of the time, they really love it or they move after a year. For me, I love this city. It's, I love it. But it's just, it's either you love it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you are a true Parisian,
Yes.
right? You were born and raised.
Well, I was born in Nice, but I never lived there. So I grew up in Paris. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been in Paris like 29 years. I lived in Paris.
29 years. And so what made you think I'm going to move to a different country and I'm going to move to Los Angeles?
Well, so I was married at the time, and my ex-husband he always wanted to live in the US. I mean, he lived in New York for a while. He was a polytechnician, he's an engineer. So for him, it was like, yeah, let's try. And I was like, I'm fed up with the bad weather. And, at the time, LA was cheap. It was not that expensive. We're talking about 30 years ago almost. So I was like, I will be able to have a garden and for the kids and all. So we decided to try, and I never left. That was 30 years ago, 29.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did LA look like 30 years ago? Because I do remember when I came, it was like beginning of 2000, and for me, it was still like the wild, wild west.
Yeah, it was, well, it was really fun. I was much younger too. I was in my 30, so it's young. So it was fun. So we separated with my ex-husband and he went back to France. So for me, it was like, wow, freedom, like parties every night, fun people to meet. Like it was really, really fun until, it started to change after September 11. When it was another vibe. But before it was safe, it was fun, it was beautiful. I liked the mix of culture. It was culture that I've never approached before, like Korean, we didn't have that in France much, like Latinos, so when we were not going on vacation, I will take my kids from one neighborhood to another. And it was like traveling.
Yeah.
So you will immerse yourself into a culture for one day, like you go to Korean town and you go to the Korean market and you go to eat food. And then and it was like you traveled or you cross Alvarado and you're in Mexico,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And at the time it was not that much traffic. So I remember with dropping off my kids at school and meeting girlfriends and driving to Tijuana, have lobster on the beach and come back to pick them up from school. Well, because the border was super easy. It was not like the whole shit that you have now. So it was really a fun, it was like living in the south of France, basically, and you had the sun and people were much more approachable. It was amazing. I loved it. I fell in love with the city right away.
Wow.
And at the time, it was not that much, or I didn't feel that much barrier in between communities. That now people are scared of everyone, like
Yes.
you don't trust anyone. At the time, you didn't have that. It was much more, and you will
It
go
was
to
a
the
big
beach.
community.
Yeah, it was easier, maybe because I was younger too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were not thinking
You
as
don't think,
much.
yeah, but it was great. And I think at the time raising kids was very nice. I mean, it was better than France because we had space, the
Yes.
space that you don't have in Paris.
Yes.
Like sports was important, all those things. So it was amazing. It was a great, experience. And I still love it. Now I moved to the beach, so in Malibu, and it's another community. It's interesting. Yeah, and then I started working, with gang intervention programs. So it was another part of LA that I've never seen before. Like, the one that you don't see, I mean, unless you cross the freeway. So I worked in South Central, in East LA, and it was another culture, other people, and it was fascinating. I loved it, loved
Tell me
it.
about your experience working for
So
this organization.
I speak Spanish fluently. So at first I wanted to do translation. So I was looking at volunteer work in hospital where I could translate. And I went to an hospital it was in Watts, it was called Martin Luther King, that I think they closed. I got there and truly they were not, that's where the first time I felt community not interacting well. So it was like predominantly Latino, but it was at the time Black community, African American community. So they didn't interact that well. But I met a lady there that was a nurse, and she said, "Don't waste your time here. Just go to that place in South Central, and I'm sure they will love you." So I called, and I was like, I'm Caucasian, but I speak Spanish. And they were like, yeah, come on in. So I went and I stayed there 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so,
doing what exactly?
so at first I helped kids with GED. So, we had kids that were in probation, right? So juvenile, juvies. So in order for them to get off the hook and not go to jail, then they had to pass their GED. So we had that GED program, like, after school program, which so they will come, and they will be prepped for their GED. So I've met the most funny, interesting, and tragic situation at the same time. I met that girl that I loved. She was so African American, really cool, very like homegirl, like that. Her boyfriend was in jail. They were gang members, right? But she was hilarious. So she lived, I remember, street. And she was like, yeah, sometimes they gangbang down my window, and we open the window and we scream at them, go die somewhere else. But she said that often it was a shooting and they had to hide in the bathtub. So it's reality that you don't know
No,
unless,
exactly. Coming from France or coming from the
yeah.
other side
So
of,
it's
of
reality
LA.
that you're like, what? Then, I did a cooking program there. So I bugged them all the time. I was like, I want to do a cooking program. I want to, and they were like, we don't have the means to do it. I'm like, okay, what if I pay for everything? So they let me do it. So I started a shoe blog at the time, and I started selling my shoes and everything to sponsor my program. So I did like little cooking, with kids. Yeah, it was really fun. So cooking with kids, and once a week I had the mother that came, and we did kind of like conversation. So they will talk about what was going on in their life, and it was good for them to be the community of women that they could express. And then you see another side of LA, the gang violence, the despair, people immigrating, not speaking the language, the drugs, all that stuff that you don't see when you live in Beverly Hills.
How did that make you feel at the time?
I grew up with Latinos first. So for me, it was like, okay, I wanted to help. And then I had a nanny at the time. Her son was a gang member. She had two sons. She was from Guatemala. She came and she brought the son later on, and they both became gang member. And one, I loved him. He was such a great kid, very nice. And he was a talented artist. He painted like nobody. And it was always like, when you're not going to jail, I want you to come and do a mural in my yard. Like I had the garage door. I was like, paint it. Do something. I'll pay you. And then he was deported and got killed, or he disappeared. Yeah, I know. So because of him, I want to get involved with really much with gangs. So that's how I started the gang intervention program, right? And then my heart always have been like working with people like that. So I work in the place called Home in South Central. At the same time, I went to Home Unidos, which is a gang intervention in Pico Union neighborhood. But it's only mostly Salvadorian, so MS-13.
Okay.
So also I met incredible people. I mean, I've never felt threatened or scared, or never ever. And there
You
we
felt
start
home
something.
also kind of over there?
Because you know what? The humans, like when you meet them, they're just lost, the kids, most of the time. And so over there, we did a program for women, because a lot of girls, for women, being a gang member is much more difficult than for men, because you're raped, you're abused, you come from abusive homes. Guys too, but guys, it's different. So women, I met women that were hurt, injured, and had kids when they were 15. Because they get two ways for women to get into a gang is be beaten, beat up, or being raped. And most of the time, the gang raped by the whole crew. So they have kids when they're 15, and they don't know. They don't know how to take care of them at all. Or they don't, they're 15 with a baby, imagine.
Crazy.
Right? So they don't know how to take care of their kids. They don't know about hygiene, how to take care of themselves. They don't go to the OBGYN for the whole pregnancy.
And you have, at that time, you had two daughters.
I had two daughters and a son, so I had my three kids.
Yeah.
So the story that you hear, you're like, are we in America? Is it real? Is it possible?
Yeah.
Like the lack of information, the lack of education, the lack of everything. It was like, that's bizarre. Anyway, and then I work with Homeboy Industry, East LA.
Homeboy Industry?
Homeboy Industry, they have the amazing program is called Homeboy Kitchen. Like, they feed people, they have restaurant, Homegirls Cafe.
Okay. Oh, Homeboy. Okay.
Yeah, you see it everywhere now. They have it at the airport. And it was also a great experience. I work in the tattoo removal program. So I remember having those old OGs, all tattooed, like, but old guys. And I was like, you want me to hold your hand? They were like, and then they were tearing because it's so painful to remove tattoos.
It's
right?
probably more painful to remove them than to make
Especially when you have gel tattoos, because they're not made with ink. Gel tattoos, are made with urine and ashes. Yeah, that's what they, because they're not allowed to, to get tattoo. So they make, like with a toothbrush, they make the machine.
Wow.
I know they're very ingenious.
Yeah,
But
that's
we're talking about guys that have been in jail for 20 years, long time, and like OGs, like old gangster, but super, super, super nice. And then, so I discovered different neighborhood, like East LA is fantastic. One of the oldest Jewish neighborhood it was in Los Angeles. That's where the oldest temple in Los Angeles is.
really
Yeah, because in the 20s, so the Jews came from Russia. So they stayed in East LA. Then came the Japanese. So the Jews moved a little forward towards Hancock Park. So you start to have the Japanese immigration. When they were released from camp, they moved to East LA. And then you had like the Hispanics. So you have all those three cultures. So you have fabulous building in East LA from the 20s. Beautiful, beautiful. And then you have the best tacos. And then you have
Yes,
Japanese
that's
food. And then
true.
you have all that,
Street food is the best when it's
Yeah.
in those
And you have
neighborhoods.
all those taco trucks. And it's amazing. It's like, in South Central, you have the best soul food, because you have all the African American that came from the South. So all those people in the 20s, 30s, 40s, they came to South Central, and Watts, and they built that neighborhood. So you have all those community living together, but, and in South Central, we were trying to bring African American kids and Latinos kids because, they shoot at each other.
Yeah, how did that work?
So you have, like, let's say on 28th Street, you have Central Avenue in the middle, you have 28 on this side, which is Latino, and 28 on this side, which is Black, and they don't like to be together. So I remember that kid, that was his nickname was LA. And he was like a gangbanger and like whatever, but not a soft one, like not a crazy, crazy one. And he didn't want to sit with Latinos. And then at the end, they all sat together. They were really happy. And I was like, see, they're not that bad. He was like, yeah, you're right. Because I paid him to come, before class. So he will set up the kitchen for me. So I was like, see, you can make money without being like putting your life in danger.
Yeah.
It doesn't last long. Like, it's so much
Because
work
it's
that needs to
probably
be done.
easier money, and
Yeah.
that's something that they're used to do.
Yeah, and it's so much work that need to be done, for community to come together. But I don't think it's happening at all now. So then I stopped for a while, and then like during the pandemic, a friend of mine called me and she's like, I'm going to Tijuana. I'm working with those shelter and we're trying to feed people in the shelter, people that migrate, and they stay in shelter. So they come to the border in the hope of getting a visa to get to the United States, right? But they can be in shelter for like a week, a month, 6 months, a year, you never know. And they're stuck in Tijuana. So I went with her to that kitchen and I fell in love with the cook. And then the kitchen belonged at the time to the World Kitchen, And the World Kitchen was trying to exit Tijuana. They didn't like it. It was too much. So the kitchen was vacant, but, we need to find finances to operate it. So I asked her, I'm like, how much will it cost? And so they told me, and I called my financial guy. I'm like, do you think I can do it? He's like, yes, you can do it. So I took over that kitchen. I mean, I sponsor it, and I love it. It's the best experience. I go once a week. I met people that, families in shelters, because we attend to shelters. So we donate 3,000 meals a day, 3,100 meals a day in between 15 shelters. And now I start on my own a program in the street. So all the junkies, like, we feed them 4 days a week. So it's really cool. You need to come one time. You will love
I
it.
want to, yes.
Yeah,
you have to tell me how I can help, because obviously I have my hands. And that's actually something that I was thinking of doing one day,
Yes.
doing because they have pain too.
Oh,
And so
100%, 100%. And so, there is shelter where we have one shelter that is my favorite, where we have families that come. And, the kids, they will benefit from a little massage, a little something. Recently I was there, we had those two little girls, and they like the age of your son, like 5 years old, and they had bullet wound, they got shot, but not shot like directly, but it was drive-by shooting, and they got shot, as they were leaving. But
That's the reality, and that happens to the US now
oh,
too.
you know
Like,
what? I have to say that in East LA, when I was working Omi Unidos, I've seen guys that were wounded, like you think they come back from war, and no, it's all in the street of LA. One guy I remember, he had like a big like belt, like compressing belt, and I was like, he was all fucked up, and then he took his belt off, and all his belly rolled out because he was shot with a shotgun in the stomach, so he has no muscle anymore. So all these organs are loose, so that's why he has to wear. But it's all gang banging.
yeah.
It's it was a gang story. It was not. It was shot by police or it was shot at war. No, it was real rival gangs. So you like guys with like missing an eye, and you're like, really? I mean, and it all happened in the street of LA,
Wow.
So gang violence is a real thing. So in Tijuana, it's like not safe to be there, but it's not dangerous. You know what I mean? It's bizarre. They tell you it's the worst. Like, truly, I've never felt anything. Truly, I mean, and I work with a group called Tijuana Sin Hambre,
Okay.
which is the one that started the feeding program, So we work with Tijuana Sin Hambre, and this is about humanity that is based in LA, and is the one that took me, my friend Elsa Collins. She's the one that, took me, and I love it, It's a very nice program because you see kids, you see people that improve their lives eventually, Sometimes I don't think they should leave Mexico because they're much better off there, but
Because they probably think that coming to the US, you're gonna have a better life.
and not always,
Yeah.
The thing is that I'm trying to do now is, if we can help them fix their life in Mexico, stay in Mexico or stay in your country, because,
And how could that be possible for them?
well, truth is like, there is work, there is, okay, so truth is like, a lot of time they tell you cartel, but if you don't get involved with anything, they won't go after you. Most of the people I've met that tell you, yeah, it's cartel violence, is because they weren't mixed up in it, It's like gangbangers when they tell you, oh, I was walking down the street, and that's not true. That's bullshit. Nobody jump you if you're not doing anything. You know what I mean? And same with like, so I have that family that I follow. They live in I met them last year during Christmas, at Christmas time in Tijuana. And I fell in love with them because they had that 11-day-old baby that was born in, now she's a year. She's so cute. So I still speak to them every day, and, we're still in touch. And so they were like, yeah, we had like, we were in, the cartel came. The long story short, when they moved, they were in the state, the wife came clean, and she said, I didn't tell you the whole truth, but my was dealing drug in the US, and he got arrested, so he's in jail. So the gang over there in Mexico went after us for the money. It's not like randomly, and they had to leave, So it's always something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I have to say that Mexico is I love it. Have you been to Mexico City?
No, not yet.
You
And one
need
of my
to.
best friends is from Mexico City.
Oh, really?
She
You need
keeps
to.
telling me that I have
No,
to
no,
go.
no. You don't understand. So Mexico City is like LA was like 25 years ago.
Oh, yeah?
It's fun. People, people walk in the street. It's like, it reminds me of Europe a lot because people walk in the street, you have amazing restaurant. People dress up. They look good, You go to a restaurant, people look good. They dress up. They take care of
Like an
themselves.
effort because it's an event.
Yeah, they don't go, or just because that's the way they are, they take care of themselves. They don't go in shorts and like, So for us, European, it's amazing, and you have art, and you have like, it's very lively, it's very happy, So anyway, that's what I'm doing now.
Thank you for listening to Deep Tissue Talk. I hope that you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. I will see you next Wednesday for a new episode. In the meantime, take care of yourself. I send you love.